Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen wa salatu wa salamu ala Nabi al Kareem. Welcome back to Fundamentals of Islamic Parenting. So, today we're going to take a look at the role of fathers in parenting. This is a continuation of the previous lesson in which we discussed the role of mothers in parenting. So, by now, you should realize a few things about parenting. Number one, that Islam has prescribed specific gender roles to the man and the woman within the household. And these roles are different from each other. And each gender has been given a role according to their nature and their strengths and their weaknesses. It does not make one better than the other, but they complement each other by serving different roles in the family. You also would have realized that the bulk of parenting falls on mothers. The mother spends more time with the children, she's more emotionally invested in the children, she has a more loving heart to give. And therefore, the bulk of parenting falls on the mother. However, fathers still play a very important role in the family. And what we're going to look at today is, in general, the role of the father in the family, the rights of fathers, specifically what a father should be doing with their children, and how to build a good relationship between father and child. So, going back to the verse in Surah An-Nisa, the famous verse in which Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala lays down the gender roles, and He says, "Ar-rijalu qawwamuna 'ala an-nisa," that men are qawwam over women. And the Mufassirin say this means that men are qawwam over the entire household, right? Qawwam can be translated as head of the household. It means that a man is a provider, a protector, and a leader. So in a family, in a marriage, the man of the house, the husband slash father, he plays three primary roles: to provide, to protect, to lead. And if he excels at these three roles, the entire family benefits. If he fails at any of these three things, the entire family suffers from it. This is not the only role of the father. We will look at other aspects of the role of the father as we go along, but this is his primary role. So number one is to lead. The man in Islam is the leader of the household. As the Prophet ﷺ said, that every one of you is a shepherd, and every one of you is responsible for their flock, and a man is a shepherd over his family. So this means the man is responsible for his family's dunya wa akhirah, and he needs to lead them in a way that leads to success in dunya wa akhirah, with the priority being the akhirah. Meaning, the man should ensure that the family never sacrifices deen for dunya. They pursue the halal of this dunya, they pursue the good of this dunya, but never at the expense of the afterlife. Right? The priority is always leading the family towards Jannah, towards the afterlife, towards the pleasure of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. And men play this role in many ways. One way is to have a vision for the family and to discuss that with the family. Another way is to teach the family. Another way is to be a role model for the family. Another way is to be the one who lays down the rules for the household and applies disciplinary action when those rules are violated. These are all things that men do as part of their leadership role within the family. That it is their duty to ensure that their family are on the straight path. And we see this even in the Quran, where Allah describes the prophets. For example, Allah describes Prophet Ismail alayhi salam. He says, "Kana ya'muru ahlahu bis-salah." He used to command his family to pray. He used to command his family to pray. So he used this leadership position in the family to ensure that they were praying, to focus on their akhirah and ensuring that they were doing what was best for themselves. So this is the primary role a man must play in a family, which is that of the leader. And this is where a lot of issues come in the modern world, where number one, a lot of women these days don't want the husband to be the leader because they have been brainwashed by feminism into thinking that the woman should lead or they should be equal partners. Firstly, equal partners doesn't work. There has to be a leader. If you are equal partners, what happens when there's a clash? What happens if he wants to move to one country and you want to live in a different country? At the end of the day, somebody has to take the lead, somebody has to have the final say. And the Quran is very clear and the Hadith is very clear that this falls on the man. Right? That same verse describes men as Qawwam, it describes righteous women as qanitat, obedient to their husbands, meaning they accept their husband's leadership in the family. And therefore, it's important that all righteous Muslim men and women are aware of this. That on one hand, women understand that husband is the leader of the household and they respect that. On the other hand, men from a young age learn how to lead with dignity and compassion and wisdom. Learn how to lead with dignity and wisdom and compassion. That you love your family, you care about your family, you want to lead them to what is best in both worlds. You don't lead like a tyrant, you don't lead like a dictator, you lead in a way that helps your family achieve what is best for them in both worlds. And so men need to learn leadership skills, and Muslim women need to be educated on how the family structure works in Islam. The second role of the husband, and the one that takes up the bulk of his time on a daily basis, is that of the provider. So a man in Islam is the provider. He is the one who takes care of the financial responsibilities. At the very minimum, providing food, shelter and clothing, but of course taking into consideration culture and economic status, nowadays much more is expected from the man to provide for the family. So a man should provide for his family based on the cultural norms of his time and status, based within his ability and within his means. And to do this, men have to work hard. So this means that the bulk of men are not at home. The bulk of men are outside the home for the majority of the day, for the majority of the week. They need to work. Some of them, especially in the modern economy, where one job is not enough to sustain a household, it means that if a man wants to be the sole provider, he needs to work multiple jobs, or work a job and run a business, or run multiple businesses. He has to work even harder if he wants to be the sole provider. Now again, Islam is flexible. So obviously if you're living in a country where it's impossible to live off a single person's income, there is nothing wrong with the wife working as well to supplement the income and to chip in and to help out. But understand that this is not the ideal that Islam strives for. The ideal that Islam wants us to strive for is a situation in which women don't need to work, where a woman can focus entirely on parenting and on taking care of the home, and that this entire burden and responsibility of providing falls upon the man. That is the ideal situation. If you are living in a country where you can't meet the ideal, Qadar Allah, you try your best. But this is really what we should strive for. Men need to, from a very young age, learn strong work ethic, so that the bulk of their life goes in working, and that they work so hard that they're continuously rising financially, in terms of job status, in terms of the growth of their business, and more importantly in terms of the iman. But a man should be continuously growing, and this should benefit his wives and his children, that they all benefit from the hard work that he puts in on a daily basis. So really, because men are the providers in Islam, you will find the bulk of a man's day goes in working hard and providing for his family. The third part of being Qawwam is the one which in general requires the least effort, and that is to be the protector. So in general, on a day-to-day basis, there's not much that a man needs to do to be the protector. If he gives his family a nice home in a good neighborhood with good security, and ensures they go into a safe school, and that his wife is safe, and that's it. He doesn't have to even think about it then. He can just focus on protecting, on providing and leading, right? Because the protection is taken care of. But there may be situations where he has to go above and beyond. If somebody attacks his family, if there's a robbery, if there's a civil war, if there's jihad, in situations like this, in Islam, men are expected to go above and beyond and to physically defend and protect their families, even if it costs them their own lives. That it is a form of martyrdom for a man to defend his family physically, even if it leads to his death. So men should be capable of this. They should be courageous. They should be strong. They should have the ability to fight, to protect their families. They don't need to use it. Right? They should have all these abilities, and really they don't need to use it. But it should be there in case of emergency. So should something happen, a robber breaks into the home, is looting or rioting in the community, somebody attacks the family, jihad breaks out, whatever it is, in all of these situations, he is able to protect and defend his family. It is at that time where the protector role really plays out at a much stronger level. But in general, for most of us, we don't need to do anything beyond ensuring that our homes are safe and our families are safe on a daily basis. And this really is about making smart decisions about where you live and how you live. Right? So this is the primary role of the man in the family. The primary role of the woman is to be nurturing, loving, and to turn the house into a beautiful home, right? And to raise the children in that home. The primary role of the man is to lead, to provide, and to protect. And really providing takes up the bulk of his time. So, what is the rights of the father? There's an interesting complementary nature between how Islam treats the husband and wife relationship and the relationship with one's mother and father. Because in the husband-wife relationship, Islamically, the man is on a higher footing, right? That the husband is the leader and the wife is the second in command. They're both important. They both should have love and respect and care for each other. They should have a mutual loving relationship. But he's the leader. He does have a higher status, right? And when it comes to mother and father, it's the opposite. That the mother's status is higher than that of the father, but the father's status is still high. So father still has to be respected, he still has to be loved, he still has to be obeyed, he still has to be treated well. But mom is number one. And this is from the justice of Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala, that things are balanced out in this way. That the man of the house leads the house. But in terms of the love that the children will give, mom will be number one. Because she spends more time with them. And she sacrifices more for them on a daily basis. Right? So, in Islam, the mother's status is higher. This is very clear if you open up Al-Adab al-Mufrad by Imam al-Bukhari to the very first hadith. The very first hadith in this book is the hadith that states, where a man asked the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam, who deserves my love and my respect the most? And the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said, your mother. And he asked after that, he said your mother. He said after that, he said your mother. And the fourth time only he said, then your father, and then your closest relatives. So this hadith is repeated 3 or 4 times in that chapter. In the opening chapter of Imam Bukhari's book on manners. Starting right from the beginning, the book lays out very clearly that mom is number 1. 3 times higher than that of dad. Why? Because men spend less time with their children by default. A man is working outside the home, earning for the family, so naturally he will spend less time with his children. If he has to travel for work, then he'll be spending even less time with his children. If he has multiple wives and multiple groups of children, he'll be spending even less time with his children. And all of this is fine. All of this is Islamically completely fine, because mom is the main parent in the Islamic system. And dad is important. We will come to that a bit later as to why dad is important and the dangers of not having a father in the child's life. But at the end of the day, in most families, in most situations, children will spend more time with their mother. They will be closer to their mother. They'll have a more loving relationship with their mother. And also, it's more likely that their mother will grow old and will need them later in life. Because men tend to pass away at a younger age, and men also generally are able to take care of themselves right till the end. But moms may reach a point in their 60s or 70s where they now rely on their children to take care of them. Dads may also reach that point, but it's uh, not as soon as that, right? So in my family, for example, my wife's mother is in her 60s and she lives with us and we take care of her. My grandfather, on the other hand, is in his 80s and he's recently married and he's, you know, still takes care of himself. Because men and women are different like that. And so, keeping in mind that mom is the one who's putting most of her time into raising the children, Islam wants to ensure that the children give her back accordingly. Nonetheless, this does not diminish in any way the status of the father, because we are simply saying dad comes after mom, but he comes before everybody else, before your friends, before your siblings, before your own children, before your cousins. So dad is number two. He's not right at the bottom. He's still right at the top. Number two is still a very important rank in the heart of children. And one of the things that families need to do for fathers, especially hardworking fathers, is to appreciate the sacrifices they make for providing for their families. A lot of families don't appreciate how hard the men in their lives work just to give them a good or a decent life. And it's very important that both the wife and the children let the father know that he is appreciated. So one of the differences between men and women is that women need more loving. They need a man to tell them I love you, and to reassure them of their love very often. Men, on the other hand, don't really care about that. You can go months without telling your husband I love you and he wouldn't care. But what really makes a difference to a man's heart, what really makes a man work harder, feel more happier, feel more fulfilled in life, is when you say I appreciate you. Right? Men love to feel appreciated the same way that women love to feel loved. And so the words I appreciate you to a man is just as powerful as the words I love you to a woman. And therefore, it's important that we show the men in our lives that we appreciate how hard they work. Sometimes we don't realize it, that this is taken for granted. Dad's not around, mom's taking care of the kids, and when she comes home there's this frustration. You're not here, you're not helping out. And he's like, I'm working, I'm providing for the family. And she says, you need to work less, you need to help more around the house. Not realizing that what he is doing is necessary for them to maintain that home, for them to be able to live the quality of life that she wants. So just like moms need a lot of love, and they need a lot of care and a lot of attention, dads need a lot of appreciation and respect. This is what keeps a man going, feeling respected and feeling appreciated. Now, life goes through different stages, and there are essentially three stages of dealing with your father and dealing with your father's rights over you. When you are living with him, when you are adults living your own life, and when he reaches old age. Now, when you are living with your father, you need to obey him. So if you are a child or someone who has not yet gained independence and the ability to take care of themselves and provide for themselves, if you are still at that phase of life, you have to obey your father. He is the head of the household. He makes the rules. His rules go, even if they are strict. And very often fathers have strict rules because they care about their children and they know what is best for their children. So if your father says you can't watch certain television programs, you can't watch it. If your father says you can't go out at night, don't go out at night. If your father says you can't go out without a male guardian, don't go out without a male guardian. Obey your father. Once you grow up and move to the next stage of your life, you're married, you're living in your own home, you have your life, they have your parents have their life, you have your children, your parents have their, or whether they have the next batch of children or whatever it is going on with their lives. Once you're basically adults and your parents are still adults, so maybe you in your 20s and they in their 40s or 50s, at that stage of life, you don't necessarily have to obey your father. You simply need to be kind and respectful and loving to him. Now here there's a misconception. There is a misconception in certain communities that you have to obey your father in whatever they say at every stage of life. And there are fathers who take advantage of this, and they abuse their children. They abuse this uh, false notion of obedience from their children. So I have seen fathers, forcing their sons to divorce their wives, saying that you have to obey me. So I don't like your wife, so divorce her. I've seen fathers force their children into marriages, force them into specific careers, force them to close down their businesses, force them to give a large percentage of their wealth to their father. This is abuse, and this is tyranny. This is a misuse of power. This is un-Islamic. If you are an adult, you treat your father kindly, you treat your father respectfully, you treat your father lovingly, you visit him, you spend time with him. You don't have to obey him in these adult decisions. You choose your career, you choose your job, you choose your spouse or spouses, you choose how many children you want to have. Your father cannot force you in these issues. There is a couple of narrations that some fathers bring up to try and prove their point on this. One is the famous story of Prophet Ibrahim alayhi salam when he visited the house of Prophet Ismail alayhi salam, and the wife of Prophet Ismail was just complaining, we can't afford this, we can't afford that, life is difficult, he's poor, we don't have enough money. She was just complaining the whole time. So he advised Ismail alayhi salam to change his wife. And so Ismail alayhi salam divorced her and married another woman. And the next time Ibrahim alayhi salam visited, this new wife was just full of happiness and full of contentment and full of piety, and he was happy with his son's choice of a wife. So they say this is proof that a man can make his son divorce his wife. And we say no, you are not a prophet. Number two, he did not force him to divorce his wife. He simply advised him. Number three, here there's a genuine reason. A prophet of Allah cannot be married to someone who is materialistic. That would completely destroy his ability to do his work, because the prophets live a simple life focused on dawah. So yes, your dad can advise you. Your dad can tell you, listen, this wife is leading you astray. You used to be righteous and she's making you commit sins. And he can advise you to divorce her, but he can't force you to do so. Right? Likewise, there's a similar case narrated from Umar radiallahu anhu and one of his sons, that he pushed for his son to divorce his wife. And when this case was brought up many years later with one of the imams, a man came to the imam and said that, Umar told his son to divorce his wife and he listened, so I want my son to divorce his wife. And the imam simply replied, you're not Umar. You're not Umar. You can't have that kind of authority over your son's married life. Umar radiallahu anhu was a man of deep insight. Such deep insight that the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam said that if there had to be a prophet after me, it would have been Umar. That was his level of knowledge and intelligence and insight. So he knew that that woman was not good for his son. The average man does not have that level of power and authority over his adult children. So we have to address this point over here, that once you are past the age of puberty and once you have living an adult life, you have independence, you're married, or whatever it is, you're living a proper adult life, you do not owe your parents unquestionable obedience. You should still try to obey them to the best of your abilities. So if your dad needs help with something, help him out. If your mom needs help with something, help her out. But you don't have to obey them in life-altering decisions, right? They cannot force you to marry someone. They cannot force you to divorce someone. They cannot force you to work a job that you don't like. You're an adult. You can make your own decisions in these areas without mistreating them. You still be respectful. You still be kind. You still be loving. But you take ownership of your own decisions. So that's important, that you live with them kindly, but you do not have to blindly obey them at this phase. The final phase of dealing with your father is when he gets old. When your father gets old, and if he's unable to take care of himself anymore, then you should take care of him in old age. And here I remind you of the hadith, many hadiths on this, but mainly the hadith that anyone whose parents reach old age, even if it's just one parent, and they take care of them in old age, it will be a means of forgiveness for all their sins. It will be a means of forgiveness for all their sins. Another hadith is stated that it's a type of jihad. That a man wanted to join the army of Rasulullah sallallahu alaihi wasallam, and the Prophet sallallahu alaihi wasallam asked him about his parents, and he said, I have two elderly parents that I take care of. So the Prophet ﷺ told him to go home and take care of his parents and said, your jihad is in serving your parents. Your jihad is in serving your parents. Taking care of your mother or father in old age is one of the most difficult things you can do with your life. But it is also one of those things that is most rewarding in the sight of Allah. And it's one of those things that has the most reward on the Day of Judgment. And it's not easy. It's a type of jihad. It's much harder to take care of elderly people than to take care of children, for a number of reasons. Number one, with your children, you know whatever phase they're going through is temporary. They're going to outgrow it. They're going to become adults. They're going to move out. They're going to have their own lives. So it's worth it. You know that this phase of this crying baby that won't sleep at night, or this tantrum throwing 2-year-old, this is just a phase. It'll be over within a year or two, right? But once your parents reach old age, just say your mom reaches old age by 60 or 65 and she has to move in with you, well, it never gets easier. Right? This is the jihad, this is the test, this is why it's so rewarding. It never gets easier, because after this, whatever happens next is going to be difficult. Either she's going to get even more older and more sickly and more difficult to take care of, which is difficult and there's great reward in taking care of her, or she's going to pass away, or that's going to be heartbreaking and difficult and a test for you. So once your parents reach old age, whatever happens next is a test for you. Right? If you have to take care of them, that is a test and there is a reward for that. If they pass away, that is a test and there's a reward for that. But it's not easy. It's a very difficult phase of life that everybody has to go through, unless they've been through the worst tragedy of losing their parents at a young age. So if my father passed away when I was 8 years old, I'll never get a chance to have an adult relationship with my father or to see him reach old age. So if you do have a father who is elderly, take care of him. Right? This is a chance of earning great reward, and it's also an opportunity that many of us don't have. Many of us will never experience this. So taking care of your mother or father in old age is something that is highly, highly rewarding. Okay, so now we get into the main part of today's discussion. We spoke about the primary role of the father in the household and the rights of the father. Now let's get more specific. What is dad's role in parenting, in raising children? And you may be thinking up to this point, based on what we looked at, that the father doesn't seem to really do much when it comes to parenting. Right? One might assume or argue that the parenting falls almost entirely on mom. And this is a mistake that a lot of feminists made. Right? So over the past few decades, there has been a rise in fatherless homes for a number of reasons. Number one, we have men these days who are not responsible. So they run away, they abandon their children, they play no role in the life of their children. This is one type of fatherless home. The other type of fatherless home would be a woman who is sleeping around and having children outside of marriage, and she doesn't even know who the father of her child is. So the child just grows up being raised by a single promiscuous mother. A third type of fatherless home is where the parents get a divorce and the mother prohibits the father from having any access to the children or influence in the children's life. All three of these are unnatural and incorrect or un-Islamic situations. Now there are situations where a child grows up without a father that is beyond people's control, right? A woman is divorced and left on her own. Right? She does the best she can. A woman is widowed at a young age and she has to raise her children by herself. She does the best she can. I'm not talking about those situations. I'm talking about the situations where somebody's sins are causing a child to grow up fatherless, whether it's the sins of the father or the sins of the mother. And what happened was also, there was a generation that looked at the family structure and said, what do we need fathers for anyway? Right? This is what they said. They said, if dad provides and mom raises the children, and if I, as a strong, independent, feminist woman, am providing and raising the children, what do we need dad for? Right? This is the chain of thought through many of these ladies' heads. And so they assumed that dads are not important, that children will grow up just fine without a father, and they decided to raise their children on their own. And now we are seeing the results of a generation that have grown up fatherless for all of the above mentioned reasons. And the statistics are not good. Right? The statistics clearly show that even though fathers spend less time with their children, it is important time. It is necessary time. It is something that is crucial for shaping them into who they are. Because what the statistics show is that children growing up in these fatherless homes, where they're deprived of a fatherly figure, there is a bigger chance of them growing up to be criminals, addicts, promiscuous, suicidal, even ending up in jail. Right? All of this is the results of not having a father. So do not diminish the role of a father in the household. He may only be home for 2 or 3 hours a day before he goes to bed. He may only spend 1 day of the week spending quality time with the children. But that time matters. That time is crucial in shaping that child into who they're going to be. So while quantity of time is with mom, dad's role is focused on the quality of time. So let's get into it. What is dad's role in raising the children? Number one, of course, is that he is Qawwam, which means he needs to provide, protect, and lead the family. Let's start with provide. Just like he is expected to provide for his wife and give her a good life and ensure that she is safe and that she is happy and she has everything that she needs to live a comfortable life based on the culture that she is living in, he has to do the same for each of his children as well. So Allah has put a huge responsibility on the shoulders of men. And that is the responsibility to provide. And he has to be just and equitable in his provisions. Regardless of how many wives or children he has to take care of all of them in a equitable manner, in a just manner. He has to provide for all of them. Yes, there are situations where there is some flexibility there. Obviously, once his children grow up and start taking care of themselves, that's something else. And if he's in a misyar marriage where his wife wants to provide for herself, that's something else. But in general, a man is obligated to provide a good life for his wife and his children. Each and every one of them. A good life and safety. Provide and protect. And that safety is a very important part of a child's upbringing. Dad provides the safety net that allows children to grow up in peace. Mom can focus on raising the children and playing with them and spending quality time with them because dad has provided them with a safe environment. They know that they are safe. They have a good home in a good neighborhood. If anything happens, dad is there to protect them. This gives them the peace of mind to be able to excel and to become their optimal selves. Take dad away, the safety net is gone. Children grow up in fear. Fear of homelessness, fear of poverty, fear of what's going to happen if somebody attacks the family, right? And this can take a huge psychological toll on the child. So just the very fact that dad plays his role as provider and protector well, that alone provides a safety net in the child's life that is crucial for them to grow well. Then there's the leading. It is dad's job to ensure a strong vision for his family and that they are working towards that vision. And a good Muslim dad will ensure that his vision includes deen and dunya, with the focus being on deen. So the man of the house should have a vision for his family, that I want these kids to grow up to be righteous worshippers of Allah and to earn halal income. I want my sons to grow up to be manly men, and I want my daughters to grow up to be good wives. I want them all to grow up to be good Muslims, and I want them to be able to contribute to this deen and to benefit the ummah and to be people who help the community. A man should have this vision, and he should share this vision with his wife, and they both should buy into the vision and should be excited about the vision, and he should be always ensuring that they are on track to meet that vision. This is part of the leadership role of the husband and the father, that he should always ensure that they're on track to achieving their vision. So if anyone is straying, he needs to sit them down and have a talk with them. If anyone is starting to commit sins, falling into bad habits, getting into bad company, That's where dad steps in, he sits them down, he has a chat with them. This is very, very important that a father plays this role in their children's life. It's also important to note that the way fathers play with their children and spend time with their children is very different from the way mothers do. And so they play a different role in shaping the child's personality. So mom will give the child the love and the encouragement and the support that they need to excel. Dad will push them beyond their boundaries to try new things, to do the things that scare them, to level up, to really discover parts of themselves they didn't know that existed. So some examples of things that dads would focus on that moms don't normally focus on. One would be trying more adventurous things. So dad may take his sons horse riding, or take them to the shooting range, or he may wrestle with them, play fight them, or he may take them for martial arts. He may teach them how to deal with danger and with crime and with difficult situations. He's going to be the one who is building in them the warrior personality, building in them this courage and this strength, and helping them to overcome their self-confidence issues by stepping outside of their comfort zone. Dad also is the one who's going to build up their mental resiliency. So dad is important in ensuring that his children toughen up. You know, he's going to be the one who's going to be bantering with the kids, you know, maybe roasting them a bit in the way he speaks to them, just to toughen them up so they're ready for the real world, they're ready for bullies, they're ready for dealing with mean people at work. And he does it in a light-hearted way where his intention is to toughen up his kids a bit. Dad's role is also being their role model. That the kids will look at dad and they will say, I want to be like him, I want to work hard like him, I want to be honest like him, I want to be strong like him, I want to be brave like him. He provides that masculine, manly role model for his sons in terms of who they want to be, and for his daughters in terms of the type of man they want to marry. Right? So mom and dad play very different roles in how they shape the child's personality. Mom's going to be spending more time with the kids. Dad is going to be focusing on quality time with the few hours that he has, making every moment count. So he'll take the family for vacations. On the weekend, he'll take them out. In the evenings, he may sit with them for an hour or two and just, have quality time. Sometimes he won't get time. Sometimes he may be working hard for 4 or 5 days in a row, not being able to spend time with his family, but he makes it up later. Dad also is the one who has the more blunt conversations about life with the kids. Right? Moms tend to have a nature of wanting to shelter their kids from certain things, and dads tend to have a more blunt way of talking. So like a dad is more likely to tell their kids, what would you do if me and mom died tomorrow? Like, what happens if there's a car accident and me and your mother both died? How would you survive? What would you do? How would you ensure that you and your siblings are safe and are able to continue with life if something like that happened? Right? Moms don't raise these kind of questions. They don't want to think about it. Right? But dads are more, moms have more of a loving nature. Dads have more of a practical nature. Dads like to think about worst case scenarios and how we're going to deal with it. And they have these frank conversations with their children so they can prepare their children for adult life and for the trials of life, for the tests of life. They're the ones who are going to sit the kids down and tell them, listen, life is hard. Bad things are going to happen. This is how you deal with it. People are going to die. Right? These type of topics, it's easier for dad to have these conversations with the kids simply because men have more of a blunt nature and we like to problem solve. Right? And so this makes it easier for dads to handle these kind of topics. So, let's conclude today's discussion with some advice to fathers on the best ways in which you can influence your children. So we learned that the father's primary role is to provide, protect, and lead. And if he spends quality time with his children, talking to them, playing with them, doing outdoor activities with them, being a role model to them, he can have a very strong influence on them, even though the time he spends with them is less compared to mom. So what can he do to ensure maximum benefit of the time he has with his children? Number one, be their model and set the standard. Right? Set the standard both in terms of what you do and what you expect them to do. Set the expectations about how high you want your children to aim in life. Dad is the one who's going to tell the kids, I expect you to do well in school this year. I expect you to improve your grades this year. Right? He's the one who's going to tell him, you're not going to get into college with those grades. You need to work harder. He needs to set the standard and to ensure that they know what is expected of them. Not just in terms of dunya, but in terms of deen as well. Dad's the one who sets the standard and tells the kids, in this home, we don't use vulgar language. People living in this home don't smoke. People living in this home don't have girlfriends. You want a woman, get married. Right? That's what you need to tell your teenage sons. You set the standards. As the man of the house, you set the standards. Morally, religiously, and even in terms of career and studies. You set the standards and ensure that your children are aiming to be the best versions of themselves possible, and you let them know your expectations. This doesn't mean that you bully them. This doesn't mean you have unrealistic expectations, but you push them to be their best and a little bit more. And again, I warn against unrealistic expectations. If you have a child who isn't academically gifted and they're struggling with D's and C's in their report, it is unrealistic to expect them to have all A's the next term. That is unrealistic. A realistic expectations expect you to do a bit better next term. Let's see some B's in there. All right, let's try to get at least one A. You set a realistic goal that is beyond their comfort zone, but it's something they can achieve that will help them to grow. So dads need to learn some balance in this. And we know, again, we have two extremes in our community, those who don't care and those who have unrealistic expectations. So dad, have expectations of your kids, but also temper it with realism, but still make sure you're pushing them to be better versions of themselves. The second thing that dads should be doing on a constant basis with their children is pushing them out of their comfort zone. Children need a push to grow up. They need a push to gain confidence to try new and scary things. And this could be anything. It could simply be, getting them out of their comfort zone when it comes to talking to adults or asking questions at the Islamic program, right? That you tell them, I'm taking you for the Islamic lecture. When it's time for Q&A, I want you to ask a question, right? Yeah, it's scary. They probably don't want to do it, but guess what? If you can get them to do it, they've leveled up. They've learned a new skill that's going to help them for life. They've pushed past their fears. And just learning how to push past their fears and do things that they find scary, that alone is going to help them for life. And there are many, many things you can do this with your kids, right? There are many ways you can do this with your kids. So for example, if your child is afraid of being home alone, and they're like 12, 13 years old, leave them home alone for 2 or 3 hours. Nothing happens. They get used to it, right? Your child is afraid of the dark. Encourage him. Stay in the dark for 3 hours and I'll give you $10, right? This will help them to push through their fears. If you spend the whole night sleeping with the lights off, I'll give you $50, right? This will encourage them to push through their fears. Dad has to do this, because what happens is if you are not pushing your child out of their comfort zone to do scary things, especially with boys, they will stay children for life. They will get caught up in that bubble and they will stay in that bubble for life. They'll be always too scared to do new things. I've seen children whose parents, kept them all bubbled up and protected from the world and never let them try to do anything that's scary. And now those children are 30 years old and still scared to drive, scared to go for a job interview, scared to do anything because they were never taught these skills. Dad, it's your job to do this. So your job, if your child is scared to go on the slide, you put him on the top of the slide and you wait to catch them at the bottom. If your child is scared to ride a horse, you take him horse riding, right? You are the one who has to push them to try new things. You're the one who has to let them know that they can do it. They need a little bit of a shove to make them realize that, hold on, this isn't as scary as I thought it was. It isn't as bad as I thought it was, right? This is something I'm actually capable of doing on my own. But very often, dad plays this role. And one of the reasons why we now have the man-child problem is that in many families, dads are not playing this role. Either the child is growing up in a fatherless home, or mom is the boss of the household and she doesn't let the dad do this. Right? So I've seen so many families where mom is the man of the house and dad wants to take the children horse riding or wrestling or anything like that. Mom says no, they're going to get hurt. Let them stay home and watch TV. Right? And dad says okay, because she's the boss. In those homes, notice the kids grow up to be man children. They don't ever grow up because mom did not let dad play his role. See, this is something very important. Moms, when dad is doing his job, stay out of his way. Stay out of his way. Dad's role is different from your role. What he has to do with the kids is different from what you have to do with the kids. You have to let dad be dad. You have to let mom be mom. And again, when the father is the head of the household, there isn't this problem because he wants mom to be motherly with them, but he also wants to make sure that he plays his role as well. And so it's important that mothers understand that the father's role is very different. And one of the most important things that dads do is they push children outside their comfort zone, making sure that they are trying new things, they are trying things that are scary to them, and that they are leveling up their skill set and growing in their confidence by doing so. Another important thing that dads must do to influence their children and to help them to grow up well is to build their resiliency. Now we have a separate video later in this series on how to raise resilient children, but this is something that fathers play a very important role in. Understand that this world is a difficult place. This world is a test. There's going to be a lot of trials. If you want your child to succeed at life, you have to toughen them up. You have to prepare them to be able to deal with the harsh realities of life and to push through their pain and to stay focused on obeying Allah and achieving their goals. You cannot do that by spoiling them. You cannot do that by keeping them in their comfort zone. You cannot do that by protecting them from the realities of the world. You have to toughen them up. And there's a few ways to do this. One is what we already mentioned, push them out of their comfort zone, make them do new things, especially if they find those things scary. But another way, another way to do this is simply to talk to them. Have real talk with them, right? That you need to sit with your kids and to ensure that you are talking to them. And you need to have frank conversations with them about death, about war, about crime, about bad things that are going to happen in the future, and how to prevent it or how to work through it and how to push through it. You have to sometimes let them fail. This is another important thing that society is messing up with in the modern world. It is very important for your children to fail, to feel the pain of failure, and to learn and grow from that experience. Many parents today don't let their children fail, right? So if your child is doing a homework assignment and you know they're doing it wrong and they're messing up, mom may feel motivated to step in, dad may feel motivated to step in and to do the assignment for them, and they get the A grade, but they didn't learn anything. They didn't learn anything except that whenever I'm in trouble, mom and dad are going to do the work for me. However, if you let them do it on their own, they fail, it hurts them, they may cry a little, but they learn an important lesson. I need to work hard, I need to improve, I need to get better at this. You have to give them room to fail. You have to give them room to make mistakes. This is what builds resiliency. When we fail and we learn and we try again, we become more resilient. And you have to give your kids room to do that. You have to give them room to get hurt. Right? Again, some parents these days don't want their children to get hurt. I have a first aid kit at home. I taught all my children how to use it. And you know what? I don't know when's the last time I ever had to patch any of my kids up, but I always need to buy new plasters and bandages, because they're playing, they're running around, they're hurting each other by mistake and getting hurt while play fighting, or while playing catch or playing with the ball, and they just casually go to the first aid kit and patch themselves up and carry on playing. This is building resiliency. This is building toughness. This is building important worldly skills. If you want your kids to never get hurt, they will never grow up. Getting hurt is part of growing up. Kids need to play. And it's fine if they play and they get hurt through their play, and they grow up through that getting hurt. It's fine. It's normal. It's part of being a child. It's part of growing up. Don't get in their way. Right? Let them do things. If they go horse riding and they fall off a horse, inshallah, they get back up and they grow back stronger and braver and more courageous. Right? If they go for martial arts training and someone hurts their nose or hurts their elbow or whatever, it's fine. It's all part of growing up. You want to build toughness in them, because the world is a dark, dangerous, scary place full of tests. You need to prepare them to be able to pass those tests. And you cannot prepare them to pass the tests of life if you are coddling them and keeping them in a bubble and protecting them from anything that hurts them. Children need to learn how to deal with pain and to push through pain, both physical and emotional. It's an important part of growing up. Don't protect them from these experiences. I've seen some parents who won't let their children even know about death. Like, the children don't know that people die, right? And what happens then if you had to die suddenly and your kids don't even know what death is, right? So this is a ridiculous way to raise children. As soon as they're able to understand what death is, you should teach them that, listen, we're born and we die. And all we have to decide is what to do with the time in between those two things. That we use it in a way that is pleasing to Allah, in a way that is good. Because any of us can die at any time. That's the reality of life. You have to have these talks with your kids. It's also dad's job to be a mentor and a role model and an example to his children. You are the role model of manliness. You are the role model of working hard. You are the role model of good character. You have to be able to mentor them. As your kids get older, maybe sometimes take them to work with you so they can see how dad works. Take them with you to the masjid so they can see how he interacts with the community. Take them with you for Islamic events so they can see how he's around the community and how he serves the community and volunteers. Be their role model. Be that example that they can look up to in all of these areas. And finally, it is dad's job to discipline the kids if they're out of line. Now, how you discipline them, that's up to your culture. I know in some cultures it's a bit more violent than others. In other cultures, it's just like taking away their video games or sending them to their room, or depriving them of their allowance, whatever it is. But there needs to be rules, and the rules need to be implemented. And generally, dad's the one who does so, right? Most mothers have this line that they use when children are getting out of line. And what's the famous sentence that every mom says when the kids are getting out of line? Wait till your dad gets home. Or, I'm going to tell your father, right? Why? Because it's naturally understood that the dad is the one who disciplines. And there is a psychological reasoning behind this. Psychologically, dads are more likely to lay down a rule, lay down a punishment for breaking that rule, and to go ahead and apply the punishment without any emotion involved. Moms, on the other hand, too often will lay down a rule, come up with an exaggerated punishment that there's absolutely no way they're going to carry out, and when the time comes to apply the punishment, they feel sorry for the kid and they give them a chance. So this is why it's important to let dad be the one who disciplines as when it is needed. Now, hopefully, if you follow our method of parenting in this course, you won't need this in a hurry, but almost every child at some point may need some kind of punishment. But just to give you an example of what I'm saying, right? So just say you have a child who is using bad language. So sometimes mothers get frustrated and they tell the son that if you use that word again, I'm never letting you play video games ever again for the rest of your life. But what you just did there is that you have put your child in a situation where they know there is absolutely no way mom is ever going to carry out this punishment. So it will not deter them at all from using bad language, because they know there's absolutely no way mom's going to carry out a punishment that is infinite for the rest of my life. She's too soft, she's too loving, there's no way that's going to happen. But if you set a punishment that's realistic, and normally dads are better at this, but moms can also learn to be better at this. If you set a realistic punishment, so you tell your child, the next time you use a word like that, I'm taking $5 out of your allowance. This is realistic. This is something you can do. This is something that's going to hurt them. Especially if they end up saying 10 bad words in a row. It's going to hurt them a lot. Right? So now they might take it seriously. But children test the boundaries. Children always test if you're serious, if you just making threats. So he may let out 1 or 2 bad words to see what you do about it. Now this is where you have to lay down the law. And moms, if you feel you can't do it, if you feel sorry for them, understand, if you feel sorry for your child in that moment, you say, okay, fine, I'm giving you a chance. They're going to do it again and again and again, because kids are very good at doing this. And this is where you have to let dad step in. So dad comes home from work, he relaxes, he has his relaxation time after work, he unwinds. And then when he asks you what's going on, you tell him, so-and-so kid using bad language. I warned him, told him we're going to take $5 from his allowance for every bad word he said. He still said 10 bad words after that. I don't know what to do about it. That's when dad calls him in, asks him, is this true? Goes to the child's wallet, takes $50, never looks back. Punishment done. Child will learn his lesson, sometimes for life, because he knows dad's serious. Dad doesn't care. Dad doesn't have the emotions that mom has. Dad will punish you and he'll probably enjoy it. He'll probably enjoy taking that $50 from you. Mom takes $50 from you, it will hurt her. She'll probably sneak it back into your wallet later. But dad, he doesn't care. Because you messed up and he's going to make sure you know you messed up. And it's very important that dads play this role. And it's very important that moms let them play this role. Again, don't be abusive. Don't overstep your boundaries. Don't hurt them. But make sure that there are rules, there are consequences, and that those consequences are enforced in a way that make the child think twice about their bad behavior. Now again, if you raise a child based on what we are going to teach you in this course, you may almost never need to discipline them. Nonetheless, it's important that you know how to do so and that you are able to do so. Because if you don't, if the kids realize, hold on, both of my parents are softies, I can get away with whatever I want, they just talk, they never carry out their punishments, that child will rule the house. That child will do whatever he or she wants, because they know mom and dad are never going to punish me. So please ensure that you are carrying out this role as part of the leader of the household, understanding that you are responsible for your flock and you will answer to Allah for the day of judgment for the deeds of your children. Keeping that in mind, ensure that when they are out of line, you put them back in line. And again, it doesn't have to be violent. I know in some cultures a slap or 2 works, other cultures it doesn't. I'm not saying what to do in that area, right? I leave that up to your culture that you are living in. All I'm saying is actions, bad actions, there should be laws about it, there should be consequences for it, and those consequences must be carried out. They must be carried out, and they must be strong enough to make them think twice about what they did. And usually this falls on the dad. So yeah, this is the role of fathers in parenting. I hope you found this beneficial. In the next video, we go back to looking at the role of mothers in parenting, but this time with a very specific focus. I want to pitch to you the importance of being a stay-at-home mom. Even if you're not a stay-at-home mom, even if you never thought about it, even if it's something that's the furthest thing from your mind, just hear my case out and think about it. Right? That's what the next video is about, and I hope you find it beneficial. Wa akhir da'wana and alhamdulillahi rabbil alamin.